Good evening, everyone. I am Reverend Dr. Stephany Spaulding, Professor and Chair of Women's and Ethnic Studies at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, and also candidate for U.S. Senate here in Colorado. And similarly to Pastor Lee, I got involved in this particular situation because I was called when Devon was murdered. Community members reached out because of just the presence of being in community. I've been here for 10 years and have been extremely active in the life of community here in Colorado Springs. And so people reached out and were just looking for someone to hear and someone to advocate and someone to address what was happening, the pain. And so I've been here, I want to say, very early on, and again, not ever going anywhere, because this is what matters most to me, wherever and whatever position that I occupy. Those of us who are pushed aside and cast aside the most matters to me the most. I agree, and again, just want to emphasize that there is a difference between just simply articulating what crimes are happening and how police interact with civilians. And so being clear that this is what happened every time a weapon is drawn, every time force is utilized, all of that is necessary. But I also think in extension, complaints against officers have to be a part of that data, and what happened with those complaints, how were they managed, how were they addressed, is necessary. Are there officers who consistently get complaints? Because if that's a reality, then what is going on with this particular officer? And that information should be accessible and available to civilians.
And you all being here today says you're looking for a solution. So law enforcement transparency means this right now, but then it means the next step being identified before you leave the room.
And to make sure that that as much information is available to empower the people of Colorado Springs. I sat in many of the days for hours with Mars being on trial. And even pre-trial, when information was asked about the files of police officers that apparently no longer exist, I'm flabbergasted. Because where is this money going, and why is it, like, as a taxpayer, why am I expending money to settle cases that I have no information about? So transparency is an absolute must, so that we know, one, what I'm paying for. Like, you're not just gonna run up my bill and tell me that this is my check. And that's what I have to give to you to satisfy some whatever. So as much information that can be made available should be made available to people when they desire it.
I think that's a loaded question. I would say that in certain parts of our in certain parts of our country, I would say yes. Absolutely. I think there has been a lot of racism in policing. I can only speak for Colorado Springs. I can say through my career, I do not believe as an organization we are a racist organization. I can say that maybe we have had officers, like any large corporation or any large company, you're always going to have a bad apple. But I'm very, very confident when we have a bad apple and we identify a bad apple, we deal with it very quickly.
Until the Colorado Springs Police Department acknowledges that there's a problem and that the community is saying we're hurting and that people are experiencing, like, we need to believe people when they say we're experiencing this kind of policing in our communities. When people are saying this is happening to me every morning as I leave my home, or when people are saying this is a presence in my community, we need to start by, like, coming into that situation with compassion. And then if the Colorado Springs Police Department isn't even going to acknowledge the community's hurting and that there's a real problem, it's going to be very, very difficult to come together to find a solution to a problem that you're saying doesn't even exist.
The question wasn't, is Colorado Springs Police Department racist right now? That's a whole different question, and we can have that. But the question was, do you believe that the history of Colorado Springs and policing in general across the United States has been racist? Just here a year and a half ago, Black Klansmen won an Oscar for the racism specific to Colorado Springs. So if we cannot, to Dr. Rojo's point, if we cannot acknowledge that the history of policing in the United States has racist undertones to it, we are never going to get to a place of communal transparency and accountability with each other, because we cannot, like, how can two walk together if we don't agree?
You're putting individuals out on the street with weapons, and they should have, like, be constantly in training and reminding, and you know what I'm saying, like, you can't just say, you know what I'm saying, treat black people fair because this videotape says it. You know what I'm saying? And I mean,
And that was my point about saying during our continuous 6 months of training, it's reiterated over and over and over again.
Well, so we're asking, I'm asking, I don't know. If I speak for you, then we can clap. But we're suggesting, because we're moving towards solutions, right? That deeper, more extensive, and consistent bias, explicit and implicit, because like implicit is a safe place for people to be in, but anti-racist training has to happen consistently, not a half-day workshop that the city puts on for all city employees, but consistently built into the culture of policing.
Next question.
And beyond the release of information, if we walk back, because again, just being present, if we walk back how the police interacted with community, when community shows up to police headquarters and police come out in riot gear, is that appropriate behavior? Is that appropriate behavior? When police and the mayor call leaders of this community into a private conversation without yet having a conversation with the family, is that appropriate behavior? When in that conversation, the police and the mayor articulate to those leaders, well, we have you here in this place so you can deal with them. Is that appropriate behavior? In none of those instances is that appropriate. And much of that happens, and I get it, and I know that it's a hard conversation and we're fuming right now, but in that position, it is because what the community experiences here, this particular community, Black and brown community, is that what the police do is from a very denigrating, dehumanizing position. It is very arrogant. And if we cannot hear that, if we cannot receive that, we are never going to move from that. And so acknowledging that even the respect level of Black and brown community is not the same, then we are not going to have appropriate behavior.
He was back on the street in 4 days. Stephany.
Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of next step, the first step is for the police of Colorado Springs, and we have authority to say this, is community involved accountability a path that you are willing to go on?
Can you say it again? Because I'm trying.
After this
I go from
conversation, yes,
data-
that's fine, that's
You
fine.
asking me to?
I'm
am I
asking
willing
to
move
speak,
forward
yeah,
and try
yes,
and
are you
solve-
willing to create space for community-involved accountability?
I'm willing to continue this conversation about what that looks like. Because I think as Gia mentioned, there are several ways this is done throughout the country. So
No,
for
and I'm
me
not saying to agree
I-
to an independent external, I'm not saying to agree to that.
I
I'm
agree
saying
to
to
have
you
future conversations.
that the community is crying for accountability and they want to be involved in what that accountability looks like. Is that something that you are receiving as valid?
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. That's good to know, right? That's great. A first step to that is, are you, because honestly, we don't know, who does the collecting of data? And that is available or not available for the policing of Colorado Springs? Who collects it? So Colorado Springs Police collect it. Are you willing, because we have incredible minds, are you willing to create a partnership with the people who want to do the research?
I guess I'd like to look at the research that was done, to look at what was done and how it was done, before I can commit to Colorado College to give up all of our data to do research.
Okay, so
I'm willing to
Linktree,
have
The
those
data is
discussions.
publicly available now?
it's okay, like, we're gonna get you the website, because they made it available on the slide, and that is gonna be the first step. And I see that we have a next meeting coming up, or at least another meeting that is planned for hopefully in April. Between now and April, are you willing to sit down and have a conversation with the researchers who want to do this work? Whatever that conversation looks like, just, can you agree to
Yes.
that? Those are two hardcore next steps. They should never give me a mic. No. I just want to echo that this work is long-term. If we are looking for quick fixes and satisfaction, then we are probably doing very different work. This work is long-term. You have to stay engaged, and it is complex. It is not just having the conversation with police officers. It is sustaining conversations with each other. It is seeing how our institutions of higher education matter in the work that we are doing around policy. It is writing legislation. It is advocating for what you need. It is making sure that everybody in this room is registered to vote. Yes. It is also, if you go to NACO on March 6th, to be back on March 7th so you can caucus. But it is all of these things collectively, and we have to know that when we abdicate our power and people use it against us, that's because we failed to do what we were supposed to do as well.